Very good morning, all of you. I hope you're doing well. Today, let us discuss the last story in the Unit 4, and I have already told you the title of Unit 4 is Violence and War, and you do not have this in your course. Ghosts of Mrs. Gandhi. हम इसको ghost नहीं पढ़ते हैं because the g sound is not there in English language. Okay, so this is ghost and this is not in your course. Today we are doing the last story, A Chronicle of the Peacocks. Now this is again an anti-war poem, not a poem, sorry, an anti-war narrative. Yesterday also we read an anti-war narrative, that was The Dog of Tatewal, and this is again an anti-war narrative written by Intizar Hussain. As his name suggests, he's an Urdu writer, and he is best known for his novel Basti in 1979. Now I will not read about the story because that breaks the interest somehow. Let us read the text. Now what you have to remember before I start is that of course it talks about the same thing, the futility of war, or how war is a waste, and how things change, how thinking of people change because of war, how their attitude changes, what things happen. That is what Intizar is trying to tell in this story. Let us see. Allah alone knows why this evil spirit is after me. Remember, he's talking about some evil spirit. I am shocked and upset. I had actually gone there to inquire after the well-being of the peacocks. How was I to know that this evil spirit would grab hold of me? Now, this particular para will be clear to you after we have read the whole story. It says, "It was by chance that I came across the small news item. Otherwise, in the midst of all that turmoil, a state of confusion, I would never have found out what had really happened. Tucked away in the middle of the terrifying news about India's atomic bomb was a small note about how the explosion had so frightened the peacocks of Rajasthan that they had flown up screaming into the sky and scattered in all directions." So, what had happened? The atomic bomb explosion, the test of that atomic bomb had been taken place in Rajasthan, and that explosion scared the peacocks. Okay. Immediately, I wrote a column expressing my sympathy. Now, I wrote a column. The writer, the narrator, the who's telling you the story, is a writer. He writes news articles. I wrote a column expressing my sympathy for the peacocks and thought that, having done my duty, I was free from all further duties. But I had really done my duty? He's asking himself. Was I actually free? That insignificant piece of information disturbed me in the same way as that small fish had disturbed Manuji. Manuji had once caught a fish no longer than his little finger and had placed it in a pot. He too had thought he had done his duty and was free, but the fish started to grow and grow. It became so big that he had to take it out of the pot and release it into a lake, and then take it out of the lake and release it into river. The fish, however, became too large for the river, and Manuji had to carry it to the sea. In the same way, a news item which journalists thought deserved no more than 2 lines overwhelmed my imagination. So it arose his imagination. Many thoughts came to his imagination, many visions came to him, and what he thought about it, how it affected him. Let us see. The news reminded me of the peacocks I had seen in Jaipur. Subhanallah, what a beautifully planned pink city it was. I reached Jaipur late in the afternoon. At first, I did not sense their presence, but in the evening, when I opened the window of the guest house, which was as lovely as a new bride, the view outside was breathtaking. Everywhere I looked, in the courtyard, on the parapet, around the fountain, over the balconies, there were peacocks. Peacocks and more peacocks. Peacocks with bright blue tails. They had a quiet dignity and a royal grace and a calm elegance. I felt as if I were in the very cradle of beauty, love, and peace. Cradle generally is the baby's cradle, right? But over here, cradle is used symbolically to tell that the view that he had of the peacocks was he felt as if he is in the lap of beauty, love, and peace. Now, this is the vision that came to him after he read the news article about the atomic bomb test explosion that had taken place in Rajasthan. The next evening, I was about to leave the city. I saw peacocks on every tree, rock, and hill. Their movements had the same peace, the same grace, and the same beauty. As the evening shadows deepened, the air was filled with the song of peacocks. I thought they were there to both welcome and bid me farewell. So this, he remembers his visit to Jaipur, and his this memory is full of peacocks everywhere. Peacocks he saw everywhere, and peacocks he saw welcoming him, and peacocks he saw bidding him farewell. Whenever I recall that trip, my mind is filled with images of those peacocks. I am surprised. Did I really see so many of them? Did the peacocks of Rajasthan actually come out to greet me? I wonder how they are now. So this is the explanation of the visit he had to that place, this whole thing. And this is a reaction after learning that atom bomb test has been done in Rajasthan. The explosion has taken place, and test explosion, okay? And what has happened? It has scared the peacocks. I try to imagine that city now, but all I can see is picture of desolation, everything empty, lonely, destroyed, disturbed, shocked and disturbed. I am neither able to see the peacocks nor hear their song. Where have they all disappeared? In which corner of the world are they hiding? Suddenly, I have a vision of a lonely peacock. Let me correct myself. This is not vision. This is a memory. Here comes the vision. And what is the vision? He sees a lonely peacock on a distant hill. He seems battered and bruised. I walk quickly towards him, but before I can reach the hill, he rises into the sky, screaming with terror and disappears. So क्या vision दिखती है उनको, क्या thought आता है mind में, that he sees a lonely peacock, right? And when the peacock is battered and bruised उसको चोट लगी हुई है, it is wounded. Okay, bruised is wounded. And when the writer walks towards the peacock screams with terror and the peacock disappears. So this is his vision. Okay, where has he gone? Where are his companions, those countless peacocks? Why is he sitting alone on that hill, the very picture of desolation? Why is he so despondent, so terrified? The sight of that dejected, lonely, bewildered, confused peacock suddenly brings to mind another image of desolation that I had forgotten. On the far edge of a dark, oil soaked sea, I see a forlorn, lonely, forlorn duck covered with foul effluents that come out from, they are laden with oil and mud. That is foul effluents. Watching the waves in disbelief. So first vision में उन्हें क्या दिखता है? Lonely peacock. And in the second vision he sees lonely duck. The waves in, till yesterday the sea was ambrosia, today it is poison. So till yesterday the sea was beautiful, it was full of beauty, and today it seems it has been poisoned. The wings of the duck are so heavy with slime that he can no longer fly. Poison flows through the veins in his body. The weary bird, that is tired bird, is a symbol of the horrors of war between the United States and Iraq. That is why foul effluents, that is why slime. इस चीज को ध्यान रखिए. Okay, so ये जो lonely ducks हैं, what are the lonely ducks? They are a symbol of the horrors of the war between the United States and Iraq. Okay, then it is sad to see the bird in so much pain. The poor duck seemed to have taken upon himself all the crimes humans commit against each other. You have to remember this. Okay, Sadat Hussein against his countrymen, the Iraqis against the Kuwaitis, and the Americans against the Iraqis. So, you know what has happened? The crime, or let us say the war which is taking place in the countries, has badly affected the animals. He's trying to tell us that. Then, it is strange that whenever apocalypse is at hand, the rich and the powerful rarely ever pay for their sins. Instead, the poor and the weak. Now, this is very, very important. Okay? What happens when war takes place? The powerful rarely pay for their sins. Instead, what happens? The poor and the weak take upon themselves the burden of suffering so as to redeem their times. The duck is symbolic of those prophets who, according to all religious texts, think of suffering as a sacred duty. Okay, so what is the writer saying? That duck is a symbol of those prophets, those saints who, according to religious texts, think that suffering is a sacred duty. We have to suffer for our deeds. That is what he tells here. At that time, I didn't recognize the duck as a symbol of our times. I lacked the visionary insight to see that he had the grace of a prophet. It never occurred to me to write a story about him. I forgot about him completely. He was only a poor small duck. आपने देखा होगा, again and again animals are being personified. He is used here, and here also he seems battered and bruised is used for peacock. I am so anxious. Okay. He was only a poor small duck and not a gorgeous peacock about whom I am so anxious to write a story now. What if he had been a royal swan instead of a mere duck? So peacocks की बात हो गई, ducks की बात हो गई. Now he's talking about the royal swans. But there are no royal swans in the world now. Once upon a time, it was difficult to decide whether the royal swan or the peacock was the king of the universe. In those days, royal swans used to swim in the lakes that were as translucent, transparent as white pearls. And princesses used to scatter pearls across palace courtyards to tempt their swan lovers. In our times, there are no swan lovers who can be seduced by pearls. Nor are there any royal swans that swim in the shimmering waters of Mansarovar. Now, no one even knows where Mansarovar is. The lakes are dry, the rivers polluted, the air thick with the dust and smoke of bombs. The royal swans have flown away in search of clear air and pure water. They exist only in the world of fables and myth. Only the poor ducks and geese have been left behind to bear the burden of our time. So, what is he saying? First, when royal swans lived, they had a great and beautiful time, and now the burden of the time is being borne by whom? By the poor ducks and geese. Till recently, the peacock, all his grandeur, was link between the past and the present. When the monsoon breeze cooled the evening, the song of the peacock used to fill the air. I remember that once a peacock came and sat on the parapet of a terrace. I quickly ran up to the terrace, tiptoed along the wall, and was about to grab its tail when a shudder ran through his body and he flapped his wings nervously and flew away. You should never trouble a peacock, son. He is the bird of paradise. Dadi माँ reprimanded me. Reprimand करना होता है scold करना. The bird of paradise? I asked in wonder. Then what is he doing here? He is paying for his mistake. What did he do to be punished? Oh, my son, he is innocent, but he got trapped in the wiles of that wretch, that is wicked, Satan. Adam, Eve, and Saturn and Paradise, I think story aap sabne suni hai, right? So even there is a myth that the peacock has been thrown out of the paradise with Adam and Eve, right? Now, how did it get trapped in the vials of Saturn? That wretch disguised himself as an old man and went to the gates of paradise. So Saturn ने क्या किया? अपने आप को disguise कर लिया as an old man and he went to the gates. He pleaded with the gatekeepers to let him in. But the gatekeepers saw through his disguise and recognized that the old man was Saturn himself. So they refused to open the gates. A peacock who was sitting on the wall surrounding the gate of the paradise felt sorry for the old man. He flew down to him and said, Bade Miyan, I'll help you across the wall. Well, what does a blind man need but the guidance of someone who can see? Saturn jumped onto Peacock's back at once. The peacock flew over the wall of paradise and helped Saturn enter the Garden of Eden. When Allah Miyan found out, he was very angry. When he exiled Adam and Eve, exile basically is Desh Nikala. Okay, exile threw him out of the paradise from the Garden of Eden. He also asked the peacock to get out. So whosoever did a blunder in the paradise was kicked out by God. I was upset when I heard the story and felt sorry for the peacock. Once upon a time, he used to sit on the wall of paradise and now he sits on the wall of our terrace. When I told Dadima this, she replied, Yes, son, that is what happens when we are exiled from our own courtyards. Now all he can do is find him something to sit on. Any wall, any courtyard, any tree or hill where he can find a foothold, he can have a grip to sit on. So he sits anywhere because he has been thrown out of his place for his mistake, for his blunder, for his error. When I walked through Sravasthi, I saw a peacock sitting on a green hill lost in thought. It seemed as if he was waiting for someone. I had reached Sravasthi late in the afternoon. Mahatma Buddha had lived there a long time ago. The vihara, where he used to stay with his monks during the monsoons, is now in ruins. Only a few scattered bricks mark its place. The peacock on the hill was perhaps the last of the survivors from the days of Buddha and still carried images of those days in his eyes. Due to the presence of that one peacock, Sravasthi seemed a great place of great tranquility. Tranquility where there is calmness. I did not stay long in Sravasthi. I had to get back to Delhi. But that evening, Delhi was a sad and desolate city. At least the basti Nizamuddin was. Only a few days earlier, a caravan of migrants whose homes had been looted had left the area. On that rainy day, it seemed as if the silence and the gloom would never lift. Even Nizamuddin's tomb in the middle of an unpaved courtyard looked dismal. The tomb was surrounded by tall grass. As I walked through it, I heard a peacock call from somewhere behind the tomb. When I turned around to look, I could not see him, but I heard him call once more. It was a strange call, resonant of millenniums past. It was a strange call which was telling him of past that has taken place long time back. As my imagination moved further down the ages, I was once again startled by the call of peacocks. Ya Mola, where are those peacocks? In which garden? Surprise, I walked a little further and found myself in a city whose outer walls touched the clouds. Beyond the walls were orchards filled with variety of fruits. The garden echoed with the music of birds of different hues. Two notes were more distinct than the others, the whistle of the koel and the call of the peacock. Are, this is Indraprasth, the city of Pandavas, and I really travel so far from home. I must get back. I have travelled far and long. I have seen peacocks from different ages and lands. I have heard their song. Now it is time for me to write Morenama, my chronicle of the peacocks. But before I go back home, I must make another trip to Rajasthan and find out if the peacocks that had flown away in fear have returned. So when he begins the story, he says that when the peacocks saw me, they ran away. But after that, he talks of the explosion, and because of that explosion the peacocks had flown away. So the reference is to this portion. Okay, so he wants to know whether they have come back. The peacocks had actually returned in great numbers. Strangely, the moment they saw me, they were so terrified. अब ये दोबारा से आई ये line. When they see the narrator, they are terrified, screaming in terror. They rose from hills and trees and scattered in the sky. At that moment, I sensed that I was not alone. Someone else was walking beside me. When I looked to my left, I was so shocked, but what I say that I could not turn my gaze away. What? Is that Ashwathama, the great criminal of Kurukshetra? Why is he here? Ashwathama कौन थे? Ashwathama was the son of Dronacharya. ठीक है? Dronacharya ने अर्जुन को सिखाया था क्या? How to use the Brahmastra, right? And before Dronacharya died, he also told his son how to use this Brahmastra. ठीक है? And the Brahmastra was a such kind of weapon जिससे all the three worlds would be destroyed. Right? Now, how the writer इंतज़ार हुसैन वो उसको किस उससे यूज़ कर रहे हैं कि जो ये मॉडर्न वेपन्स है ना, these atom bombs and nuclear bombs and all other war weapons, they are the Brahmastra which are being used to destroy the whole worlds, the three worlds, right? And the people are fighting, स्पेशली इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात आती है, जैसे यूएस से इराक की बात करी, आगे जापान की बात होगी, एंड देन इंडिया पाकिस्तान की बात होगी. सो व्हाट इज द राइटर इन दिस ट्राइंग टू टेल यू दैट द स्पिरिट, ईवल स्पिरिट बोलेंगे हम इसको, है ना, ईवल स्पिरिट of Ashwatthama is moving along with the poet. That is why here also he says this evil spirit is of Ashwatthama. Okay, and because he Ashwatthama's evil spirit is walking with him, that is why उनको देख के peacocks क्या करती हैं? They run away. Okay, that is what he means to say. Now, why is he here? Why is he walking beside me? I don't know when he attached himself to me. Perhaps he began to follow me when on my way back from Indraprasth I stopped at Kurukshetra. So there the war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas had taken place. Yes, I am sure this evil creature attached himself to me there. But Kurukshetra was desolate. I had seen no living being there. Where had he been hiding? Had he been wandering there ever since the war? War transforms man utterly. अब ये इस स्टोरी का क्रक्स है. The writer is coming to the main point which he wants to tell you. And किस तरीके से बताया है? Through the question that Parikshit asks from Vyas Rishi, that when people knew the Kauravas, the Pandavas, that war will bring about destruction, then why did such a thing happen? And Vyas ji ka bahut acha jawab hai, the reply Vyas ji gives, the mention will come here. So let us just find out. War transforms man utterly. Take Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya. Dronacharya was a man of such profound learning that all the great warriors of the Pandavas and the Kauravas used to bow down to him and touch his feet. Ashwatthama, his son, had inherited many of his father's qualities, but he did not have his wisdom. He was the most damned and accursed man of that war. Accursed, one who is cursed. It is said that Dronacharya, guru of all the great warriors, possessed the most dreaded of weapons, the Brahmastra. In appearance, it was no different from the blade of grass. But its power was so great that it could reduce everything to ash, destroy all living things far and wide in an instant. Dronacharya had passed on the secret of that weapon only to his favorite disciple Arjun. बताया ये मैंने आपको, है ना. War is so awful that in Kurukshetra, the teacher and his disciple found themselves in opposing camps, fighting each other. Both, however, अब ये बात बहुत important है, द्रोणाचार्य ने और अर्जुन ने, there was a vow that they will not use Brahmastra because it will destroy the whole world. They had taken a vow never to use the Brahmastra because it will destroy the whole world. Before his death, Dronacharya revealed the secret of Brahmastra to his son Ashwatthama, but warned him strictly never to use it. After Dronacharya was killed, there was no one left to stop Ashwatthama. So, during the last days of the wars, he decided to stake everything and release the Brahmastra. The last days of war are always the most fearful. They are dangerous and unpredictable. During those days, men are tempted to use weapons that are only meant to threaten. It doesn't matter if a city like Hiroshima burns, at least the fighting comes to an end. The victors are satisfied, the defeated are lost in their sorrow. At Kurukshetra, it was Ashwatthama who acted foolishly and used the Brahmastra. When Sri Krishna heard what Ashwatthama had done, he said to Arjun, O Janardhan, Dronacharya's foolish son has released the Brahmastra. Now, all living beings, things will be destroyed. Only you can counter that weapon. Act quickly before everything is reduced to ashes. Arjun took out his Brahmastra and released it to neutralize Ashwathama's weapon. It is said that when Arjun released the Brahmastra, the fire was so intense that its flame singed all the three worlds. Its heat even scorched the forest where Vyas Rishi sat in meditation. He was terrified. He abandoned his meditations at once, went to Kurukshetra, stood between Ashwathama and Arjun, and raising both hands shouted, "O evil ones, what great injustice is this? The entire world will be destroyed. Recall your weapons." Arjun touched the feet of the great soul and at once recalled his weapon. But Ashwathama was unrepentant. He was not ready to listen. "Maharaj, I have released the weapon, but I don't have the power to take it back. All I can do is change its direction." Sorry. "So, instead of falling on the Pandav army, it will fall on their women, strike their wombs, and destroy their fetuses. The Pandavas shall have no heirs, and their clan shall come to an end." So he says, okay, I don't have the power to get it back, but what I will do, I will change its direction. So instead of going to the Pandavas' army, it will hit their women, and their women will never be able to give birth to children. And what will happen? The Pandav will have no heir. Heir, जिसको हम हिंदी में उत्तराधिकारी बोलते हैं. Okay? Then Shri Krishna said angrily, "O son of Dronacharya, you are a great sinner. By killing children, you have committed a great crime. I curse you to wander alone in the forest for 3,000 years. May your wounds never heal. May pus and blood flow from them always. May they stink so much that people everywhere run away from you in disgust." तो ये होता है accursed. ये इसको curse दिया था कृष्ण, Shri Krishna. Okay, he gave him this curse. "Even I wanted to run away from him as far as possible, but he clung to me like a shadow." So the feeling which a writer had was that the evil spirit of Ashwathama was going around with him. That is why the evil weapons like Brahmastra, the modern Brahmastra, that is the atom bomb, were being tested to be used for the reason of war. "Ya Allah, where can I hide? How can I get rid of him?" I suddenly remembered that Mirabai Samadhi was also nearby. I wondered if I should seek shelter there. Then it occurred to me that the Dargah of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti was also in the same vicinity area. If I could find it, I would easily get rid of this evil spirit. Who would let him enter the Dargah? Other thoughts scared through my mind, but I did not know how to cast him off. No matter what path I took, he followed me like a shadow. Who he? The evil spirit of Ashwathama. Peacocks screamed with fear on one side. Women of Pandavas wept on the other. There was mourning in every home. In every family a child had died. There was calamity even in Arjun's house. Subhadra was crying bitterly. The Kauravas at Kurukshetra had killed Abhimanyu, the son born from her womb. She had mourned for him. Mourned to feel sad. She had hoped that Abhimanyu's wife Uttara would give birth to a son and ensure the survival of Pandav lineage. But Ashwathama's prophecy had been fulfilled. तो अश्वत्थामा ने क्या बोला था कि मैंने अपना ब्रह्मास्त्र घुमा दिया है towards the women of Pandavas and they will not be able to have children. Uttara collapsed after giving birth to a stillborn child. There was no celebrations in any other Pandav household either. The Brahmastra had rendered wombs of all women barren. Subhadra remembered the promise her brother had made to her. Shri Krishna had promised, "Sister, I shall not let your daughter-in-law's womb remain barren." So everywhere in the Pandav's family this had taken place. Lekin Subhadra, जो कि श्री कृष्ण की सिस्टर थी, she had taken promise from Shri Krishna that he will not let her daughter-in-law's womb remain barren. So because he was an incarnation of Vishnu, he installed life in the body of the dead child. ये जो ये stillborn child था, dead child was once more. He also predicted that Uttara's son would sit on the throne of Hastinapur and bring honor to the Pandavas. But when Uttara's son Parikshit was on the throne, he asked Vyasji, who had come to the palace to give him blessings, a very strange question. Parikshit washed Vyasji's feet in a bowl of rose water, stood before him with folded hands, bowed his head and said, "O wise one, with your permission, can I ask you a question?" "Ask, son." So why has Vyasji visited them, the Pandav's family? Because Parikshit was being coronated. He was being coronated the king. "Maharaj, all the elders of a family were present at Kurukshetra. There were wise and knowledgeable men amongst the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Why didn't they understand that in war everyone has to pay a heavy price, that war destroys everything, annihilates everything." Annihilates is again destruction. Vyasji sighed and replied, "Son, during times of war, even the best of men lose their heads." So when war takes place, even the people, even the most wise people, even the people who are full of knowledge, who have lots of wisdom, they lose their heads. They lose the capacity of thinking. They lose the capacity of reasoning. Besides, that which is fated must come to pass. तो पहली बात क्या बोली कि wise men lose their heads in war, and second thing, whatever is fated has to happen. Then Vyasji went back to the forest. In those blessed days, rishis used to live for thousands of years. Arjun's grandson was not a rishi. He died when a snake bit him. But the question he asked Vyasji continued to live long after his death. I suddenly remembered that question when I was wandering through Rajasthan. Indeed, I countered it at the same time Ashwathama began to follow me. I felt as if I were walking between two shadows. At first I was surprised to see Ashwathama. Oh, this cursed man has not yet completed his 3,000 years. When I remembered the question Parikshit had asked, I was even more surprised. Was that question still alive? In fact, it seemed to be even more urgent in the present. Yes. So, the question of war is most urgent. Most urgent, what it means? It is most important. The question that Parikshit had asked Vyasji, क्या पूछा उसने कि जब सारे intelligent wise लोग वहाँ थे, then why the war of Kurukshetra took place? So he says those men had lost their wisdom, they had lost their power to think, they had lost their heads. And this particular question, ये आज के माहौल में भी set होता है, especially in the context of India and Pakistan. It hung over India and Pakistan like a sword. But that which is fated must come to pass. Vyasji evaded the question and refused to answer it. That is why it still hovers over us, demanding an answer. So, two spirits समझ आ गए आपको? एक तो अश्वत्थामा का spirit, which is spreading evil all around, which is making wars happen, and the spirit of Parikshit asking the same question, that why wars have to take place, right? Now, Ashwathama's shadow was bad enough. Why must I be tormented by Parikshit? Parikshit's question too. I had to get rid of Ashwathama. I tried to deceive and evade him. I changed my path suddenly and was sure I had lost him. But after some time, I realized he was walking beside me once again. He could not follow me forever. I had to get back to my country. He was the evil spirit of this land. He could follow me only up to the border. Who would let him cross it and go any further? I had to deceive him, escape from his clutches, and get back home. I would be safe there, but unfortunately, you will see that he will find him there also. I did finally evade his vigilant eye. I fooled him, and before I realized it, I crossed the border and heaved a sigh of relief when I reached my country. I thank God that I had really escaped from that evil spirit. I recalled a story from the Betal Pachisi, but that was only a story. It is in stories that evil spirits continue cling to living beings. Anyway, I was free at last and very relieved. I thought of peacocks from different epochs and different lands. I recalled their song. Now I could sit in tranquility of my home and write my chronicle of peacocks. I was ecstatic. I was really happy. All the peacocks I had met began to crowd my imagination. Their lovely songs echoed through my brain. Then I had a vision of one divine peacock. It spread its tail like a fan over the entire universe and danced. I walked in its shadow. As I approached my house, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I quickly turned around. I was paralyzed with fear. Ashwathama had followed me home. Oh, the evil spirit has found me here too. How can I ever be rid of him? In despair, I cried out, "Oh, my creator, oh, my protector, when will this evil spirit complete his curse of 3,000 years? When will I be able to write my Morenama, my Chronicle of Peacocks?" So, uh, basically, what is the Intizar trying to tell you, that war is something which keeps leaping on, moving on. Even if people try to settle things, they don't really happen. And here, through various visions, what Intizar has tried to tell us, he has talked about various wars, and he has talked of the most frightful war of Kurukshetra, which had taken place, and through those questions that Parikshit asked Vyasji, and the reply, the answer that he gets, what he sees when he's saying that the evil spirit of Ashwathama is following me, he is trying to tell us that the enmity between the people has not come to an end. This man, Ashwathama, he had really done a blunder, right? And in today's world, if USA Iraq is fighting, if India Pakistan is fighting, if the bomb was thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then all these places are hit by the evil spirit of Ashwathama. He is making these things happen. Okay, so that is what the poet is trying to tell us. And through this reference to the scripture, and through reference to these stories from the scriptures, we will have to understand what Intizar is basically trying to tell us, right? Various myths have been taken, and various stories from the past have been taken to explain that how war is useless and war is futile. You can go through this portion about the story and things will be more clear to you. Okay? Hope you will be able to connect things. That's all for today. Thank you so much. Take care.